good Tuesday evening, everybody. I'm Manny Vitale, host of My Fight Our War and co-host of Music and Mayhem with my brother Skylar Ray. And I tell you, just had a wee bit of a scare there, with me and my IT skills and everything. Um, and of course, well, it is 7:06, so I am right on
Ish.
time, 7 o'clock ish. First time I saw where it said go live, and it said basically, Manny, we know it's you trying to go live, so we're going to give you a headache and nervous breakdown. But all is good, all is well. Thank you guys for joining me tonight with a very, very, very special guest. And that's right, it is Tuesday. We usually do this on Monday, but because of who this is, we are having a special edition of My Fight Our War with our very, very special guest. I'm very honored to have Benjamin Lerner on. Before that, we have to pop on OG. There she is.
Hi, guys.
And as you guys all know, she is busy, hard working all the time and getting all the comments, any questions. And as we're going through, please, if you have questions for Benjamin, please drop them in the comment section. OG will get our attention, and we will answer them. So OG goes bye-bye, and it is my pleasure to bring on the one and only Benjamin Lerner.
Yay.
Hello, brother. Thank you for having me. What's up, OG? What's up, Manny?
I tell you what, I don't know. I mean, I already showed the red from my sunburn, but I was getting redder by the moment. I have never seen that before when I went to go live with StreamYard and everything, where it was, okay, well, we know you want to go live right now, so we're going to mess with you. So, but anyway, thank you for, I just saw that too, because I got to do what you did, and we're going to do some sharing here. But Benjamin, thank you, brother, for coming on.
Privilege is mine, man. I really appreciate this platform, you, and the life-saving work you're doing.
Oh, appreciate it. I know that you had yourself a busy weekend.
Yeah, it was unforgettable up in Maine.
What did you do? What were you?
I went to Black Balloon Day 5, which is this event held by Recover Together, which is a community organization founded by Randy Beard and his friends up there in Maine. And Randy was out in the streets for over a decade in active addiction. And he is now bringing together a consortium of recovery organizations, harm reduction treatment organizations, and Mainers. That's the word for people up in Maine. I've come to learn over the past couple of years working with them, who have been struggling in active addiction, are in long-term recovery or early recovery, work in treatment, work in harm reduction, and most importantly, people who have lost their loved ones to addiction and or fentanyl poisoning. And it was a incredibly moving event for a lot of reasons for me. And, Kalichi and the Real Young Swag are two artists that I've been riding with for the past half decade. Long before I started this platform, I've been playing them on my recovery rap radio show here in Vermont, Clean Jams. And so to get to share a stage with them and perform a song that I did recently with Kalichi was amazing. But to anybody who's been to a recovery event with like 1,000 people in the same room, you can talk about it, but until you feel the joy, pain, hope, and experience firsthand, and you bask in that, and you're part of that, there's no words that can describe it. And I know for a fact I'm not going to be the same after it. And it was just life-changing, and I'm honored beyond belief that they had me there. So that's the best I can do, summing it up.
I'll tell you what, it is so insane. And I'm the new guy here. My Fight Our War, we just celebrated our second anniversary on January the 9th. And January the 27th, I just pulled in my 5-year sobriety. So we're a bunch of positive things too, but I'm learning as I go as far as the recovery platform and the events and all that. What you just described as the intensity and all that. Our first live one that I was a guest speaker at was through FAN, and it wasn't nearly, there was maybe 100 and so people there, but just being in the same room, it's different doing like this, but just the energy and just the interaction of the people sitting there and just that contact, it was very overwhelming.
In the best way.
Yeah.
There's good overwhelming, there's bad overwhelming, but this is humbling. I could do, and I did a live after it. I did a live during it. I could keep talking about it, and I will, because I'm still digesting it. But shout out to them. Shout out to them for bringing those people together, and shout out to you for your platform. Anybody digitally or in person creating spaces for recovery. That's what I'm all about.
And I tell you what, brother, you are incredible with what I mean to anybody who is doing this. I mean, the amount of respect and love and admiration I have for anyone who is reaching out to help people is just mind blowing. And just seeing the people, and there is no boundaries. Addiction doesn't care who you are, what you look like, what your social standing is. It's vicious and it's evil, and it's up to us to stand together. And for you and your music, and not only your music, Benjamin, but your just your intensity, your personality, you're so just being authentic, being Benjamin Lerner, and being so
All I
relatable.
can be.
And it really is. It just is a testament for you. And again, like I said, just to be able to share this platform with you is an honor for me, man. Um, but this whole thing is about addiction, and we are definitely gonna before we let you go, hear about your new song and some stuff that's dropping. But when we had you on Music and Mayhem, it was really condensed because it was talking about collaboration, this, that, and it was kind of all pushed together. But I wanted this to be about you and people to get to know your story as well. So why don't we just start off with your story, man? When did this terrible road of addiction that we've all come to walk upon? When did this all start for you? What was your childhood like growing up and everything?
I always like to say, and I said this on the last podcast, but I'm going to dive deeper into what this means tonight, that I was an addict and alcoholic as I understand it today before I had my first drink or my first mind-altering substance, long before actually. And what that means is I was always, and there's a part of me that is still always searching for an external solution to an internal problem. And I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., I'm the son of two Ivy League educated journalists. My mother also struggles with alcoholism, but that did not rear its head until I was about 13 or 14 years old. So growing up, there was no history of alcoholism except my distant ancestors. There was no mental health stuff that also surfaced for my mom later. My parents loved me, and there was nothing off break that would make you think from the outset that this would be my path. My great-grandfather, his name was Irving Berlin, and he is recognized as one of the most prolific and influential songwriters in the history of the United States. He wrote God Bless America, White Christmas. And I'm not saying that to flex my ancestry, because honestly, that's a double-edged sword. Like, growing up, it was amazing to have that as my legacy, but as a writer and musician and songwriter myself, that's also big shoes to fill, and it's big expectations. But like him writing those songs, me seeing the Oscar statue, that was my reality. And growing up, when I was 3 years old in preschool, they noticed I was a little different. And they took me to a developmental specialist, and they said, well, I've got some good news and I've got some news. The good news is that Benjamin is off the charts when it comes to verbal reasoning, and he's off the charts when it comes to small motor skills, building with Playmobil and Legos. He's far past his peers. The thing that's a little disconcerting, though, is that his social skills, his eye contact, his ability to communicate emotions and recognize emotions, and his large motor skills are that of about a 12-month-old when I was 3.
Wow.
And it turned out that I had autism spectrum disorder, which at the time was called Asperger's syndrome. And not long after that, I had my first moment of experiencing what is called sensory overload, which I actually remember. The first time I remember it, I was at a Toys R Us or a KB Toys, some chain toy store with like big lights and flashy like Mickey Mouse displays or whatever. And I just remember feeling like all the people walking by, all the sounds, all the sights were literally screaming at me. It was like fingernails on a chalkboard in my mind. And so I'm under this display table for like Playmobil or Legos or whatever. My hands are over my ears and I'm screaming because I just want to drown it out because it's too much. And at that point, I remember feeling like I was ashamed to be myself. I was screaming out in emotional and mental anguish that got to a physical level with the way that my brain created this electrical firestorm. And long before I ever touched a drink or a drug or anything really happened in my life, I was uncomfortable in my own skin and I was looking for an escape.
Man, I tell you that, and this
Mhm.
was three,
Yes.
3 years
3,
old.
4 years old, somewhere in there before I went to pre-kindergarten when I was still in preschool. It's one of my first memories.
Man, that is intense for and OG's she's a nurse. She's a registered
And actually, I
nurse.
got a question. Did you allow people to hug you?
I wasn't really angry at tactile sensations. There's different
Okay.
ways that stimulation can affect
Right.
people on the autism spectrum. Some people really like being compressed. If anything, I like they love compression blankets and weighted blankets.
Yep.
If anything, I
Yep.
like
Yep.
being hugged. What I
Okay.
hated was people looking at me in the eye, asking me to
Wow.
do
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
like feeling put upon in certain conversations. I felt like people were staring into my soul and that I was like exposed and vulnerable. And it created this electric firestorm of anticipatory dread that made it impossible for me to like, actually, let me put it this way. When people tried to bring me in closer, like emotionally and personally, it made me withdraw more. And that's
Gotcha.
always been the case for me.
Man, that is intense at 3 years old to
Yeah.
have that
3, 4,
that
something like that.
those emotions. That's insane, man. And here, I mean, just think you go from that where that attention and all that, like in your face attention. Fast forward a bunch of years later, and now here you are, an entertainer on stage with everybody looking at
Yeah.
you. So
Well,
that's
it came with a bunch of things that I'll expand upon because
Mhm.
there's a kind of dichotomy here, like two opposing forces that seem contradictory, but if anything, just kind of pump each other up and serve as foundational pillars for those opposite and seemingly contradictory extremes, which was, although I hated being close to people, my first drug was external validation. So I hated when people tried to connect with me and like see me for who I was, because looking back, and I couldn't see the intense emotion certainly, but when you're like 3, 4 years old, you're not aware of what's going on in your own head. You're just aware of the baseline like lizard brain
Mhm.
stuff, like the fear and the very primal urge to hide. I wasn't analyzing my emotions in a neurotic or self-aware way until I was like 7, 8, 9 years old, and it was an increasing awareness as time passed. But what I do remember is the first time I talked to other kids, the thing that I liked was not actually bonding with them. It was when they said things like, "Oh, cool, Ben just did like a spin move off of the gym," or Ben came in with a really cool dinosaur stamp, or like a really cool pack of Pokemon cards. Like I didn't like when people got close to me. I just wanted them to like give me a hit of approval and love. This, which was never about who I was as a person because I wanted to hide. It was about what I brought to the table in terms of doing something cool, doing something admirable, building a persona for myself as I was just forming. And part of it was my own inborn anxiety and need to be like something that I wasn't, because I didn't believe myself good enough. And I always had this innate sense of discomfort. But the other part of it was that I was born in Washington, D.C. And, you know, I had a privileged upbringing. My parents didn't own the shopping mall, but I went to school with kids who owned the shopping mall, owned the Washington Nationals baseball team, were corporate lobbyists and senators, the sons and daughters of senators, congress people, billionaire hedge fund and NGO managers. And as that being a fact, the first question a lot of kids would ask me in like kindergarten or first grade when I met them was not, "Hey, do you like baseball cards or like Power Rangers? Do you like playing with trucks or dinosaurs?" It was like, "What do your parents do for a living?" My dad's a lawyer. My dad's on Capitol Hill. My mom's a doctor. And so what I mean by that is all of those qualifications of the profession, of the status of all those things, whether you're in a place like DC in a private school like me, or you're in a small town and like someone's the dad of the star quarterback, someone's the pastor's daughter. In any case, people are going to size each other up. But in DC, it's amplified because power is the aim of every single person in this circle. So although I was already feeling like leaning toward an external validation thing, I'm not going to blame the place I grew up in for like giving that to me, but it served as a springboard for me to delusionally jump into that even further. Because if that's the foundation of my interactions with people and the way that I'm based in my own worth, then it's still not in here like another normal kid. It's everything outside. So I began collecting Pokemon cards, video games, Pogs, things that I could use to amp myself up and put myself in a place where even though I was the awkward autistic kid, if I showed up at the sleepover with like a cool Xbox game, it was like, yeah, let him hang. Like he's cool. He could come ride because he's like decent at like Mario Kart or Halo. That was my calling card. It wasn't me. It wasn't my personality. It was what I brought to the table that got external approval. And, you know, as my skills developed, my writing, my poetry, my music, which were my few creative outlets where I actually did have a little bit of confidence, I didn't get the most enjoyment out of like mastering a piece. I got the most enjoyment when people would say, whoa, that 10-year-old kid is playing that Bach piece like really, really, really well. He's this, he's a prodigy, he's that. And that's cool. But at the same time, when you're doing that and your only aim is like an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid is getting people's approval, feeling a sense of belonging from what's outside of you rather than who you are, it creates this yearning for external validation, which then served as the foundation when the drink first hit my lips to transfer that from validation and a false sense of belonging based on external factors that had nothing to do with my soul or who I was and everything to do with what's outside. So it transfers to the chemical.
Man, I tell you, just for the whole thing, especially being the young kid. And then, I mean, it's hard enough as kids can be so freaking cruel. And like you said, that acceptance, especially when if you're the new kid or the clique and all that. So I get you what you mean about that. And I really love what you brought up about how, our upbringing, because so many guests I'll have come on, and there is that stereotypical person. Well, alcoholic, a drug addict. Well, your parents were probably split, abuse of domestic violence. It was always there. They got this. And then us as addicts have that blame. We're good at manipulating, and it's everyone else's fault but ours. Well, my mom and dad got divorced and I didn't get enough love. But for you right there, you nailed it. It's like, I had all the best of the best. So it just goes to show you again, addiction doesn't give a shit what your social standards are.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, my parents did get divorced and my mom did get mostly emotionally and somewhat physically abused when I was 7, 8, 9 by an alcoholic. It wasn't like 8 Mile, trailer park stuff. It was like behind a bamboo forest fence in like a suburban DC 3-story brick home. But like the thing about it is that because I know that my autism spectrum and the way I related to kids even before my parents got divorced was so flawed and so attention seeking, I have the clarity to know that, at least for me, that was not the driving force behind my addiction. It certainly may have amplified and justified me seeing my mom's boyfriend after she divorced my dad downing half a fifth of Tanqueray and pressing her up in the kitchen against the counter and like screaming curse words at her and like storming out drunk. Like, sure, I internalized that and there's trauma there, but like I don't blame him. I did for a long time, but today I don't, because the truth is that like I was already going towards that. And there's a lot of things in my life where, yeah, I can blame the dealer, the doctor, the party, the peer, like whatever, but I had to, just like I had to show up for recovery, I had to show up for that. And the first time I did take a drink, I was 13, 14 years old, and my dad would like occasionally leave. He's not an alcoholic, so he would leave like half a beer watching a football game. And 11, 12 years old, I'd take a sip, and I hated the taste at first. And then I'd take like a sip of champagne or like wine at a New Year's party just out of curiosity. But I don't consider those my first drinks, because those just gave me little glimpses into the fact I didn't put it together. I would feel woozy and like euphoric a little bit, but I wouldn't know that it was the drink, because there'd be these cool parties going on and I'd be talking to people. But then I had like a whole beer one time and I was like, wait, like this is making me feel different, but it seemed almost too good to be true. It was like my anxiety is going away. Like this can't be like a liquid that comes in a glass. It was like you told me the whole key to like this whole psychosocial awkwardness thing, not feeling good enough, was that simple, that I could take that poison stuff in dad's liquor cabinet and pour it and I'd be okay. It was too good to be true. But then I tested it out when I was in my friend's basement in this super suburban, like nice town outside of DC called Bethesda. It's 7th grade, 8th grade. I forget exactly, but I'll never forget what happened. We had done before, like taking a little sip of like liquor out of his parents' cabinet, but we didn't get drunk because we didn't want to get caught. And all the liquor bottles were way low because his parents weren't alcoholics. They were like dinner party wine and cheese drinkers, right? So we were like, nah, we can't do that. Bottles are too low. It was real late. We didn't want to risk crashing one down. So we go to his basement and he's like, I think they got some beer down here. And we find it, and it's really, really gross. I mean, there's like 6 beers, there's like little like mildew, like multicolored mold like on the side. It's this old, disgusting seasonal beer, Sam Adams Oktoberfest, and it's far from October. I mean, I didn't even look at the expiration date. I think it had been like underneath the flap of the couch, like 3 years old. Room temperature was bad. But we each popped one. He took a couple sips, was like, dude, like, this is gross. I don't know. Like, you can. And I chugged all 5.5 in about 30 minutes. And from the moment, like halfway through the second one, there was, you ever like, you're in a car, you're in a plane, and like your eardrums like pop?
Oh, yeah.
It was like a spiritual pop. It was like the whole pressure just went away. And I was enveloped in this fake warm, fake euphoric, poisonous bliss that made me feel like I was enough. I was worthy of. And I was chatting my brain off. My friend had to tell me to shut up because I was just floating. And I thought, this is it. I was like, how have I not known about this? I used to think people were stupid for getting drunk, but now I know why. But that came at a cost. And the cost was that instantly. And I wasn't able to access it that quick. It's not like I had that and then I was like, going to like get drunk every night because I didn't have access to it. My mom was just starting to drink alcoholically. My dad kept it all under lock and key. So it took like another year before I was able to find people to party with. But from that moment on, I started doing things that were a different form of validation seeking at a higher level. It was almost like me getting drunk that time gave me courage, not just then, but in other places to like do things that I just would never have considered doing. Like the first time I stole my mom's ATM card was not to get drunk or high. It was because I had some friends take me out, like these girls in my class who were my family friends. And I was so awkward. Like I had like kissed one girl playing spin the bottle by the time I was 14, but like that was just dumb luck. Like I had no idea how to talk to girls, having like autism spectrum and all that. But these girls showed interest in me. And it was because I was so badly dressed, right? They're like, you could be so much cuter, like if you tried this. So they took me to like Abercrombie, American Eagle, and all this stuff, dressed me up like a Ken doll. And I go into school the next day, and the same way I had that GameCube game, right? I come in with the J. Crew shirt, the Abercrombie t-shirt, and wouldn't you know it, girls finally are like, whoa, like, so it was the same way. It was like, and I realized that if I didn't have fresh clothes on, that whole thing didn't keep going. So I stole my mom's ATM card while she was getting drunk at this restaurant down in this shopping neighborhood. I go get $500, go buy all these clothes, and I got this rush running back in like I got away with it. And so I started, even when I wasn't drinking, behaving alcoholically and erratically, increasingly, because this is a thing that I should have known back then. It's not just about the drink. It's about the progression of the spiritual and emotional and mental sickness that spills over into other aspects of my life. So by the time I really started drinking in high school, I was already a full-blown spiritual alcoholic because I had crossed lines I'd never thought I'd cross when a drink wasn't even in my hand.
Gotcha, man. That's that thing too. And we keep raising the bar. It's just like, well, even when it comes to that point for like with alcohol or drugs, whatever it may be, like for me, it was like with the drinking, it was like, man, you might want to slow down a little bit. And then it's always, well, come on, man. I'm not as bad as so-and-so. He's stumbling around drunk all the time. I'm not that bad until you are. And that's like, well, I'm not getting pulled over. And we keep raising, you keep raising that bar. So like for you, man, like you said, you were getting that experience and, that feeling before
like
that
a dopamine hit.
It makes sense now.
Dopamine
it really
hit.
Does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a dopamine hit that then I was the dude that like, there's this line in this movie my son loves, Trolls Band Together. It's where Justin Timberlake plays like one of those like trolls, like, with the colorful hair, like those dolls from the 80s. They licensed those and they made a movie with DreamWorks. And what's funny is Justin Timberlake starred in this back in like 2023, and it's all about boy bands. And they're making fun of like NSYNC era stuff with Justin Timberlake playing the troll. So there's like a funny real world coincidence with that. But the line they keep saying about the frosted tips and the denim tuxedos was like, it was an era. So my era was like 06, 07 is when I first went to high school. I was born in 91, so I'm 15 years old. I had the like Justin Bieber haircut. I had the scarf. I had the like skinny jeans, like the emo jeans. I had the like, you know, flower design and like old band t-shirts. Like I was trying to like swag on and thinking I was like, but again, it was just for the attention. And I got the attention, both negative and positive, from like upper class boys and girls. So this one guy was like, and I was geeking to like drink because the kids in my class, first week of school, all the preppy kids from my class, they got caught drinking. And I was like, y'all are some rank amateurs. Y'all don't know what you're doing. I can't party with y'all because I have been stealing beer and like liquor from my dad's cabinet, like off and on, like trying to be slick. And I was like, y'all can't play it. So I went to the older kids. And there was a party being held by a junior, and this is December of my first year. And I'm messaging on Facebook with this older kid about where's it at. He gives me the address, he gives me all these things. And I make the mistake of telling a kid whose birthday party I'm supposed to go to that, oh, I'm going to go to this instead. Can I lie? I'm saying I'm going to your birthday. They tell their parents tell my parents. So I'm with my dad because I'm spending weekends with my dad at this point. And he confronts me on it. He's like, you're not going to the birthday party. You're staying right here. And I full on start yelling at him, saying, guilt tripping him. Because at this point, they've been divorced. He's got a new person he's engaged to on the West Coast. And I start manipulating, like, you've been gone with your new, like, wife and your new, like, identity family out there. You're not here for me. Guilt tripping him as a dad, being like, the least you can do is when I'm invited to an older kid's party and I'm trying to find my way, you can take me there. And he's like, all right, 30 minutes. He's like, you want to go? You want to go there? Like, I'll take you there, 30 minutes. And so we go down there, and I go up to the front door, and these two senior guys come out, drunk as hell. They're like, Skinny Jeans, which is my nickname. What the hell are you doing here? And I lie to them because I can tell they're trying to kick me out. So I'm like, my dad drove me there, mind you. I was like, listen, man, I took 2 trains and a bus to get here. I'm cold as hell. Can I please just come in? Like I want to, like, someone told me to be here. He's like, who told you? And I told him, he's like, well, he's not even here. And I'm like, okay. So I'm walking away, and they're like, wait, Skinny Jeans. And this is the point. They hand me a cup, which has like 4 or 5 shots of Everclear and a splash of pink lemonade. And so for anybody who's ever drank, like, Everclear is like, there's an 80 proof and there's a 95 proof version. And this was the 95 proof version. So it's like 10 shots of liquor in that cup, and I'm 120 pounds soaking wet. And they're like, you need to drink this, Skinny Jeans. If you're coming in, you're going to get wasted. So before that, the cup of liquor was my portal to get out of my anxiety. But at that point, just like the GameCube game, just like the clothes, me consuming that thing that I was already drawn to literally got me through the door of that party. It was an initiation ritual. And so what ended up happening is after that party, I realized that the same way if I came through with that GameCube game, if I got like a fake ID, started copping little bottles of Hennessy, coming through with some bags of like cannabis, escalating cocaine, MDMA, all these things, that would get me in even when people didn't want to party with me. So at this point, it took me back to when I was in lower middle school, and I would see balding parents looking like they were on top of the world, aging parents who's clearly it is. There's nothing wrong with being bald or aging, but these were people, they were getting fake tans. They were getting little facelifts. You know, you could see the scars from the joints, seeing that they're insecure. But when they had that BMW or Bentley in the line, they had that fresh suit, they had that new cell phone that became a material extension of their worth. And so the bag of weed, the bottle for me, became the same thing where I didn't have to work on myself. I didn't have to build my self-confidence because the chemical was giving me that feeling of false superiority and that fake courage. And it was also giving me the identity that I sought out.
That was your validation, man.
Wow.
I mean,
yes.
There you are, like you said, Skinny Jeans is here. Next thing you know, they're
looking to
they're
you.
after you. Now they're instead of you, oh, we don't want you at this party. Now they're going after you. Hey, man. Yeah, you want him at the party. Now you're getting the reputation as the one. You want you want drinks, you want alcohol, you want drugs. Get a hold of you,
This
man.
is your man.
And that's just it. And like you said, it's that validation, man. It doesn't matter, young, old, or whatever it is. Like you nailed it with material things. You feel like shit, you look like shit, but you got that new Bentley, you got that new BMW, it doesn't matter. because now people see that and it's an extension of you. So that's a perfect example, man. So I mean, so here this is all happening. I mean, you're still pretty young at
Yeah, I'm
this
15,
point. So I
15,
mean,
16.
so you're
Whoa.
drinking, you're doing shots, and are drugs and are drugs in here now? You said smoking weed, doing blow. Is that
Yeah,
in?
I mean, I'm not going to make this like just a whole drug alert. I want to talk about the more psychological thing, but
Oh, yeah,
I'll get
definitely.
into it. I mean, the first time I smoked weed, and listen, no hate to the Cali sober community. I support all paths of recovery, but like THC does not work in my recovery. So for me, it was a harmful substance. It wasn't as harmful as alcohol or anything else, but it still played a role more culturally than anything else in terms of like getting me involved in selling drugs. It wasn't so much the effect, but the first time I did it, like that was another door for me to like, because at first I was just like a kid who drank, but when they went to smoke weed, I didn't feel like I was a part of it. But then it's like, and it wasn't just that like they were going to do something else, but they would come back red eyes, like in a certain mind state, and I wouldn't be hanging with them on that same plane. So I do that, and then immediately after I do it, I start selling. I link up with the older kids, and selling weed becomes my identity. Number one, I want to support my own habit because the money I'm stealing from my mom's purse and debit card ain't enough for how much I need to make myself feel okay. But number two, it was a power trip. Because if I could, like you say, if I walk through that door, it's like, you know, the people don't like me. They don't want to be around. Oh, hold it up. That's my worth in that bag. And then what ended up happening at the same time is, you know, I was at this point winning regional piano contests. Nothing too crazy, just like, you know, a couple dozen kids would like, you know, the same group of teachers would like enter, but I was winning, and I was winning money, and it was like a good resume stamp for me as a young classical pianist and composer. But I found something that I liked a lot more than classical piano because it allowed me to do both of my passions. I started writing poetry when I was 8, and I wrote like hundreds of poems by the time I'm 15. I can't stop. It's just I love the way people respond to it. I love doing it. And, you know, I'd seen 8 Mile. I'd listened to Eminem, Project Pat, Biggie, like different South and North rappers. But like I was like, nah, I can't rap. But then I get drunk and I freestyle at this one party, and I find that it's the one thing that gets me higher than the drugs. Because it's not just the validation, it's my ability to like actually get high off of doing something that comes from within. And that is the first glimpse of like me, other than composing piano and writing poetry, of me actually feeling worth in who I am, because I'm telling my truth through it. But that truth is short-lived, right? Because in the beginning, I'm actually rapping about how I'm living. I'm like, you know, referencing like the suburban stuff. And the kids I'm hanging out with, like the dealers, they're like, man, that's corny. No one's going to put you on if you're talking about like going to mansions with swimming pools and stealing your mom's Volkswagen, dude. Like, you got to talk about some rap stuff, man. Talk about what you're doing out here. Like, listen to this rapper and try to sound like him. And again, I shift. I try to like put that part of my personality up front. So now in the beginning, I was just like, you know, I would like fake, and I would manifest things through my rhymes and through my persona I was making. Like, I was like, I want to be a big weed dealer. And I didn't ever become like, you know, the biggest, but by my senior year, like I wanted like that song Dance with the Devil by Immortal Technique. It's like, he used to sniff coke in his dreams. He used to a corrupted young mind at the age of 15. Like, and it escalated to the point that I actually was driving around in my car, crushing fifths of expensive liquor, selling ounces of weed all over town, like moving 5,000 worth of weed a week. But I was in debt to all these dealers because I smoked half of anything I had. I was getting guns held up to me behind nightclubs in Southeast DC. And it wasn't even what I wanted to be, but so many people were asking me, and I felt this need to be that guy, separate from the feeling of the substance, that when I started crashing cars, when I started getting tickets, getting pulled over, you know, when the dealer I was buying pounds of mid-grade weed from said, he's a Jamaican accent, he's like, man, your car is so dirty, you need to let me clean it. And I was like, man, like I was slipping. But I justified it because it wasn't just about coming down from the substance. It was like, if I let this go, I have nothing. And so what I started doing at that point is I started paying for rap features because my career wasn't moving fast enough, arguably because the music I was making was kind of fake. It was like me trying to exaggerate who I was. And so I paid for like a song with Project Pat. I paid for a song with Mac Miller, which I don't regret at all. Like, I'm grateful I got to work with those guys. But as their careers continue to go, mine didn't. And looking back, I know all too well why that is, because both in my life trying to change consciousness chemically. And through my music, how that manifested, I was not keeping it real. I was hiding behind the drugs. I was hiding behind the music that I was making to get people's approval. And eventually it all crashed and burned, and it wasn't too suburban anymore.
Yeah, I tell you, hearing this reminds me of something my brother, Skylar, me and Skylar Ray were talking one time about, here he was rapping and all the things he was, rapping about. And it really wasn't going anywhere because he was rapping about this shit that he wasn't doing. It wasn't real. It wasn't authentic. He's talking about rapping with, driving around in this Beamer and this Bentley and all these women and all that. And he goes, here I am taking the bus and here I am with none of that stuff. So then once things flipped around for him and he started actually rapping about things that were
Authentic,
real life
yeah.
in his heart and soul, boom, it just took off. So it's kind of like the same thing, man, where it's got to be you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the crazy thing about it was, on some level, I understood that because I got to open up for Mac Miller after I paid for the feature for him. And he was actually cooler after he blew up than before. Like, I went in the parking lot to smoke a cig with him, not paying him for a feature, nothing like that. And he was cool as hell. He rest in peace, by the way, another tragic casualty of the opioid epidemic. But he did his first sold out show outside of Pittsburgh, the place he's from, in D.C., like the D.C. area in Virginia. And I was an opening act. And he was so cool, like after he blew up. And that's when I realized the fame's not getting to him. He's not getting high on the cloud. He's spiritually aware enough that like he can make songs about being a lacrosse playing white boy and like going to the shore and like mourning his grandfather passed away and like flirting with girls who were in his high school class. And like people see it as real because it's real and because his swag is real. And I saw that and I knew it. But my approach was, I was like, well, then I just need to keep living my addiction out until the stuff I rap about is real.
Oof.
And I got that. I dropped out of school. I spent $100,000 of my family's money driving around, buying coke, Molly, like Xans, like all these new drugs that I'm doing more and more and more, going to like an 8-ball a day and like a fifth of whiskey a day, driving around the country while I'm doing this, not sleeping for days on end. And surprise, surprise, trying to live this lifestyle worth rapping about, I crashed my car into 3 other cars. And the first thought when the cops pull up and, I blow like a .13 6 hours after I had my last drink or something because I got so wasted the night before and I'm coked up, like just trying to like, drive home and I get in this accident. My first thought wasn't, man, I stole $100K from my parents. Man, my life's over. I crashed my mom's car. Are the other people okay? It's, I'm not going to be able to drink and use today if they take me to the station. And they did. And my family bailed me out. And I did what, any good addict, alcoholic does, which is I did a geographic relocating, trying to get away from the consequence. And I managed consequences. I manipulated. And I said, listen, I'll stay around here and get a dead end job and like sell weed and like get high until my court date. But you guys should ask my grandmother to pay for me to go out to like San Francisco, where my dad, who's not an active alcoholic like you are, Mom, or she was actually in recovery by that point, but I was guilting her because she was only like 6 months sober. I was like, who's not an alcoholic can like watch me. And so this is January 2012. I go out to San Francisco where my dad's moved. He's relocated and he's not an addict. He's the type of dude who can have like 4 glasses of wine, put it down, take it or leave it. But I'm out there. I'm going to school, trying to get his approval. I'm not sober. I'm still smoking, but I'm not drinking to like get everybody off my back. And I'm actually doing okay. But what happened is all 4 of my wisdom teeth came in impacted and I got prescribed Percocets. And out in San Francisco, there's this place called Pill Hill on Turk Street and Leavenworth Street. And the poetic thing about it was I lived on Taylor Street and California Street, which was like 7-8 blocks up from Turk Street. And there was this massive hill that went down from Taylor in California to Turk Street. And I could see my whole life literally going downhill every time I went to that open air drug market to cop. So I literally had to walk downhill, this hill that got sketchier and sketchier as it went down there. And my life did go downhill. From that point on, man, it wasn't suburban anymore. I was going to art school, but like I was staying up all night with like dealers from Stockton and, Fresno and Modesto were coming up to see my homie from DC who had moved out there and was moving like 10, 20 pounds of weed a week. I was like always perked, yacked up, drunk, rolling in class. I would go to these classes, like not sleeping for days, either dope sick or like on the uppers. And I somehow made it through that semester. I came back home, and the same way that, like, my friends caught up to me when I started drinking early on in high school, and then they joined me and I became their supplier or whatever. At that point, my friends caught up to me with the opioids. And we were all on the same page. And it wasn't just me not living the suburban lifestyle, even though I was still in my mom's basement in the suburban house, but I was going to, like, Baltimore and PG County to cop 30s, and like Southeast DC to cop perk 5s, and eventually Baltimore to cop heroin with like ex-cons. And like every line I swore I would not cross going in and out of treatment over those next couple years, freebasing dope, freebasing 30s, shooting dope, smoking crack, shooting fentanyl, shooting black tar, shooting opanas, like lancing abscesses with blunt rigs, stealing from my friends, not just my family, stealing from complete strangers, stealing from people I saw at parties, pawning things that were not mine, pawning my clothes, going to consignment stores and selling my last jacket in the middle of the winter. Like, all these things I swore I would never do. And I actually lived the life that I thought I wanted to live and I wanted to rap about. But then something crazy happened, right? It went from, nah, your stuff's too tame, you can't rap about that, to the hood rappers who like wanted to, finally, when I was at that happy medium, they wanted to work with me. But when I started rapping about shooting dope, smoking crack, taking perks, they were like, man, you're crazy. That's some other, like you need to get sober. And I was like, I can't win.
Yeah.
And I should have just been myself, but I didn't know how. And that, not my friends dying in the beginning, the same friends I shot dope with the first time being found in their basements, not me having seizures, not me like having abscesses so bad I get cotton fever that makes me think I'm going to pass out, not being found in movie theaters by security guards shaking me awake, my whole body's asleep and my face is blue, not, picking cigarettes out of the gutter with lipstick stains on them in the middle of the Tenderloin, not getting punched in the face by dealers, sliced in the side by dealers trying to run my pockets when I'm out on those streets, not looking in the eye of 12, 13-year-old Honduran MS-13 corner boys who were skipping school in the night before I've seen them shoot somebody point blank for standing on the wrong corner and trying to sell there. None of that made me want to stop. What made me want to stop was when the drugs stopped working.
I tell you what, everything that you just rattled off. I mean, you always hear people say, well, at least I didn't do this. Well, at least I didn't do that. It seems like, that bar kept moving for you, man. And the thing is, I've had a lot of guests who will come on and say, well, I never thought that I would do anything besides drink until they started doing blow. I never thought I'd do that. And then until I did. And then it came to, well, I never thought I'd ever use the needle until you do. And for that, man, I tell you, Benjamin, I did not know the extent of what your drugs and what you did were. And for you to go through all that and to have the freaking drug dealers telling you, dude, you're crazy.
Yeah. No, Project Pat from 3-6 Mafia, like less than a year after I started using opioids. The dude who did the song Sipping on Some Scissor, he came back and did a feature cheaper because I did a show with him. He's like, man, this boy Skinny's like really going for it. He thought I was a scared little suburban kid when I first met him in high school. When I was 20, 21, he's like, nah, this boy's really about it. So we go back and I break down like a pill and snort it in front of him. He's like, Skinny, man, you need to get off them drugs. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, man, it's going to take you away from the music, man. And I was just like, it was surreal to me because this is the dude who did Sipping on Some Scissor, blunt to my lips, drinking, smoking anthems. And I was just like, man.
So for you to go through, I mean, you're going through, you got this one side over here saying, you're not bad enough. You're not rough around the edges enough too. That's just insane, man.
And so here's what, no, go ahead.
No, man. I just, just insane that here you can't win for losing.
No, you can't win. And so what ended up happening is I hit an emotional bottom when the guys that like I helped, they're still tatted on my arm. It's like a clique of musicians called Cypher League, where when I first started using really intensely, I would freestyle with them, and they started a little blog out of college that became a much bigger blog. And then they signed some like underground musicians with like bigger platforms off the strength of like the freestyles me and another couple other kids in DC did. And they moved to Brooklyn, got this loft, set up this studio there. And I kept doing shows with them, and they had these music compilations, and they didn't put me on one of them when they swore they were going to. And then they took down all my freestyles to start like a new curated page to appeal to labels. And so my whole catalog as an artist, which I said, music was the one thing that got me higher than dope, even though I couldn't quit. So that's gone. I can't even use like what I built. It's all gone. They don't want to work with me. And that's the semester at school where I didn't even go to any classes. I just dropped out. I cashed in everything. I'm out in the Tenderloin shooting like 10 bags of tar a day. You know, it's the worst my addiction's ever been. And I come back home and, you know, I drop out of the IOP that my mom makes me go into to get back on MAT. Nothing against MAT either. Just never worked for me either. I have respect for people who get on Suboxone and get sober. For me, it was just a crutch. I could never use it responsibly because even when the Suboxone was in my system and the cravings were sated, I would still shoot dope even when my receptors were blocked and I couldn't get high because it was a spiritual and emotional thing far beyond any chemical thing. But shout out to the MAT community. Didn't work for me. So I drop out of that. And the moment I realized I needed to get sober was around Memorial Day 2016, 2 weeks before my sober date. I went up to New York City because my plugs in DC and Baltimore weren't responding to me. And my tolerance was so high at this point that if I didn't know somebody had like fire fentanyl-laced dope, I didn't buy it. It wasn't even like I needed to not throw up at least 200, 300 worth of like Fetty-laced dope a day. And so I go up to New York City. My friend says he's got like the plug on all that. We get a couple buns. We get a hotel room. We get like an eighth of like soft white. We're cooking it into crack, and I'm smoking incredibly potent home cooked crack, shooting multiple bags of Fetty-laced dope at a time, and I'm not getting high. I'm getting physically high, but I'm not getting emotionally and spiritually high. And to take it all the way back, that little kid with his hands on his head under the table, 3 years old, screams at me and is like, "That's not enough." And that was the end of the line for me. My drugs were liquor, cocaine, and opioids. And I'm slamming fentanyl, inhaling quarter-gram hits multiple times of crack, and it's not doing it for me. And then I was scared. I was like, this is not cool, bro. Like I felt physically not dope sick, but I was still anxious. I was still depressed. I was like, this is not, it was like a bad dream that I couldn't get out of. And when I dropped out of the treatment center, they gave me a card and they're like, call us when you're ready to actually take this seriously, and we'll put you in contact with an inpatient treatment center that can help you. And I came back humbled, and I thought about it, and I called the treatment center while I was shooting dope. I literally had the needle in my arm calling it. It's the only way I could do it. But I reserved my space, and two things happened before I went to treatment that actually made me ready to really quit. The first was that one of the kids that I knew, who sadly today is no longer with us, he was the last person that I got high with. And he ended up passing away several years after I got sober. But we went up to get some crack and dope. And then I met up with another kid who used hard drugs sometimes, but mostly just drank and like smoked weed. And my friend who I used hard drugs with was staying at his apartment. And the dude whose apartment it was, he had a key. So we were in there like doing our thing, like with the hard drugs. And homeboy whose apartment it is comes home real drunk from the club. And he's mad that me and him are like doing hard drugs in his kitchen, making it hot. They start arguing and fighting with each other. Homie whose apartment it is drunk as hell. He's coked up. He pulls out a switch and he's holding it above his head, right? And remember when I told you when I had that DUI accident, I didn't care that I had crashed my car. I didn't care that I had wasted all that money. I was like, I'm not going to be able to get high. When he raised that knife above his head, my friends, like at this table, my friend's like right, like a foot away from me. Like my friend who I'm using with, he's like standing over there. Like in that split second, my dope's on the table, my crack's on the table, my money's on the table. I'm not thinking, is my friend about to die? Am I about to die? My first thought was, if he doesn't kill me and this doesn't turn deadly, am I going to be able to grab my drugs and run out before it does? That's the only thing that I cared about. And thank God he slammed the knife down on the table, and then me and my friend left. He's like, y'all need to get out. It didn't go there. But in that split second, I didn't care about my friend's life. I didn't care about my life. I cared only about the dope. And then the night before I went to the treatment center, I made a deal with myself. I said, this stuff doesn't even get me high anymore, so let's try something. You know? I loaded up a shot where I couldn't even see blood register in the rig. It was so dark. It must have been like a gram and change, like something like that. Fetty Lace dope. And I was like, if this does not take me out, I will give recovery an honest shot. And I didn't even pass out. I didn't even get butterflies. It had been the same dope that had sent 3 of my friends, same plug. Maybe it was a weaker batch and God saved me, but the same plug that had sent 3 of my friends to get Narcan into the hospital in that same week. And then I woke up the next day and I got on that druggy buggy, man. And at that point, 3 things had happened. Addiction had taken me away from my music. Addiction had turned my friends into people I did not recognize. And dope was not my solution anymore. So that laid the groundwork for me understanding that the drugs of clout with the music that I wasn't getting, the drugs of approval from my friends, and the drugs themselves, all external factors were not working, and it had to come from within. And that's when I went off and I was ready.
Wow.
Man, I tell you, that's something when the actual thing that you stopped you from using was using. I mean, to the point where as much as what you just described, I mean, you shouldn't even be here. I mean, we all know that, but I mean, didn't even phase you to the point where, I mean, and then the logic about what you just said. Well, my boy's about to get stabbed in the head here. And if I can grab that off the table real quick before he hits the table, before the cops come, I mean, that's the logic, the thinking that we have. And when I talk about how the power of addiction, when people will ask me sometimes about some of the guests that are on, or myself, about the power of it. And these are people who have never had any issue personally with addiction or through loved ones. And you try to explain to them the grip that it has on you. They just don't get it until they hear what you just said, that nothing matters except for that next high. Nothing matters until getting more, the next hit, the next batch, like you said.
Nothing mattered, and I didn't matter. I was just a vessel of emptiness, because in chasing, and I am a believer in this, if you chase everything externally, you might get it. Mm-hmm. Whether you're a rapper, lawyer, contractor, whatever you are, if your goal is money, prestige, property, fleeting romantic and friendship encounters that boost you up in terms of how people see you, you just might get it. But for me, in terms of the chemicals and the clout and all that, the more I chased that, the more empty I felt inside. To the point that I believed that I was so spiritually empty that no substance could even get me close. And that ended up being a godsend, because my brain was so fried that the dope I shot didn't kill me. I am convinced that my neurotransmitters were so tapped out, that's the only reason I survived. And kids today don't have that luxury, because keep in mind, my addiction was relatively short, but it was very, I hate to say it, gracefully arcing up from perk 5s, perk 30s, Dilaudids, Opanas, weak dope, stronger dope, tar dope, Fetty dope, over like 3-month increments, like perfectly. And if my tolerance wasn't given that time to go up, I would have died so many times, because and everything out today is Fetty. So half of the stories I'm telling, I want to make it very clear, that's not the way things go down today. And it's crazy because it's been less than a decade. But I went to treatment. I remember stripping myself down, like literally in the room, because they search you, and feeling like it didn't even matter to me. Like I was already so bare, so vulnerable, so naked, and spiritually it's like, whatever, like do what you got to do. And I made the mistake of not using that day. Because I thought that that's what you had to do, that they would put me on like Suboxone that night to like taper down, but they didn't. They made me wait another 36 hours. So I'm losing my damn mind in there. And they finally put me on a dose of it that, keep in mind, I'm shooting like 1 to 3 G's of Fetty Lace dope a day. They're like, we're going to give you 8 milligrams of Suboxone. I was like, that's a cute joke. And so they gave me the 8, then they gave me the 4 the next day, and then they said they'd give me 12 days of 2. And they gave me that last 2, and I was like, bro, I'm not taking another one. They looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, you what? And I was like, dude, I'm already throwing up. I'm already crawling out of my skin. I'm already unable to sleep. Like, let's just rip the Band-Aid. And from that point on, all the substances were out of my system. They might have given me like Flexeril or promethazine for the aches and the nausea, but that's it. And about a week in, I made a really dumb decision because I was there and I was chemically sober, but I wasn't paying attention in the groups. I wasn't trying to actually make my life better. I was just like, I'll try this. I'll see what happens. I saw someone standing in the line and I thought she was beautiful visually. But I was like, nah, again, that insecurity. I'm gross. I'm like, I look like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, like pube beard, full on, like with scabs. And like, I was 135 pounds, 6'3", like 50 pounds less than I am now. And I'm skinny today, but like skin and bones. Sternum popping out like an arrowhead. Like it was. And so dude comes up to me literally the day after I think that to myself. And he's like, hey, you see that girl down there? Points to her. He's like, I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's good money, man. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm out here looking like Kmart Jay and Silent Bob with scabs on my face. What you talking? He's like, go for it, man. And I made a dumb decision, and I don't blame anybody else. I made the dumb decision of projecting my need for external approval onto another person who was very, at that point, not because she was a weak person, but because everybody is when you're detoxing. You're not in the right point. But I was so selfish and desperate, even though the drugs were out of my system and I had physically detoxed. Like I keep saying, I shot dope when the sub was in my system. It's not about the chemical thing. It's about the spiritual yearning. So even though there were no drugs there, I hooked up with her selfishly and I projected all of my shame, doubt, fear, and guilt. It's like, this is all my stuff. If you drop this, it's going to explode. And of course, because it's not anybody's responsibility to validate me emotionally, romantically, as a friendship or otherwise, a rumor gets spread about me having like HIV or something, and she stops talking to me. And it felt like when the plug didn't pick up my call. And I'm here in this boxed in place where kids are now making fun of me because they've heard of this. They're pouring milk and Cheerios in my bed. They're like shoving me in the hallway. It's like prison rehab reality show drama, that of the pettiest kind. And so what do? I pack up my bag. I didn't have my suitcase in my room. I had to do it in a trash bag. I'm carrying a trash bag, clothes, trying to leave the treatment center, and it's in Pennsylvania. So word to all my Kensington kids, most of the kids who were at this treatment center were from Kensington or hit bottom in Kensington. And they're all telling me, yeah, man, if you leave and you got the bread, you should go to Kensington. So I'm telling my family I'm going to go to another treatment center. They got it all lined up for me. But really what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the train from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, the heart of Kensington, and I'm going to intentionally check out. That's my plan because I knew it was the end. I knew there was nothing else I could do. And so I'm sitting in this room, and I got my bag packed. They let me get my suitcase. There's cabs on the way to take me to the commuter train. I got my family hoodwinked. I got them Western Unioning me $400 to Philadelphia, where I say I'm taking a train to far central Pennsylvania, go to Caron, another treatment center, but I'm just going to go take $400 to Kenzo. And I'm telling the treatment center, I'm going to go to Caron. She's like, yeah, giving me the half-lidded gaze. She knows what I'm up to. And there's this little reflective surface on the desk. Might have been like a clock, might have been a little metal like desk weight, might have been a mirror. I forget what it is specifically, but I saw myself clear as day. Scabs, bags under my eyes that make my 33-year-old bags look like nothing. Deep purple, like the rock band. Patchy beard, scabs, track marks so big they're 3D still from all the abscesses, wearing a t-shirt. And I looked at me superficially, right? And I'm like, that person ain't worth saving.
Wow.
But then the same way that when that dope didn't get me where I wanted to go, that voice of that little kid came back in a bad way. At this point, I look in straight in my eyes, not in the face, in the eyes. And I see fear, but I don't hate it anymore. I'm like, I'm the same kid I was when I was 3 years old screaming under there. I'm the same kid I was when I watched my mom get abused. I'm the same kid I was when I got my heart broken by my peers saying I was a lanky, no good for nothing. I'm a awkward autistic kid. I'm the same kid I was when I first walked through the door of that party and chugged, and it just all played through me, everything I had done wrong that made me hate myself, stuck in this perpetual cycle. And a voice just screamed at me from my inside my head. Now today I call it God, but then it was like, don't get in the cab. You deserve to be sober. Stop punishing yourself. Stop running. It's going to be more work. It's going to be more pain. Stop. Just call it off. So I did. And not only did I take my bag back to my room and decide that no matter what happened with that girl, and I told her what happened, and we didn't end up together. We were cool. And I had like residual feelings that she had to check me on later on in early recovery. But like, I wasn't about just that anymore. I started going to the cafeteria every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, doing the stuff for the meetings that came there, stacking the chairs. It was like a whole psychic change for me, and separate from any fellowship. And I don't get fellowship specific, but if you hear how I talk, you can know that I'm not afraid to take the stairs when the elevator's broken. And that's what's helped me. Those stairs in that program, metaphorically and literally speaking, helped me. But I get out of treatment, and my mom meets me at this recovery house in DC. And I'm going to take a little break for you to say anything you want, but she did something that day that laid the foundation for my recovery in multiple ways. And I don't think enough gets said, not just for supportive and loving family members or people with lived experience, but for supportive family members with or without direct recovery or addiction experience, balancing tough love with soft love in a way that makes a channel, which she did that day.
Oh man, I tell you what, Benjamin, your story. I love this opportunity that God's given me to first share my story with everybody, and then have the trust of people come on and share their stories as well. And like you said, for me, I look back at the things that the people that aren't an active addiction, our families, our friends, our loved ones, that we've hurt, the things that we've done, and that they're still here. And the amount of pain. I remember looking at my mom one time at a table, and she was crying, not only crying, sobbing, not only sobbing, pounding her chest. You are breaking my heart. Here's me, Benjamin. All right, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. It won't happen again. As she's sobbing, pounding her chest, and breaking her heart. I didn't give a fuck. So then all of a sudden, fast forward, I'm sober, sitting at the same table, looking at her and laughing, joking with my mom, having a beautiful conversation. And it was like a slideshow took over. All of a sudden, that picture of her starting to cry went right in front of her. And I looked, and I could hear her saying, "What's the matter?" The next one was her crying more, the sobbing, pounding on her chest. I could hear, "You're breaking my heart." Next thing you know, I'm bawling my eyes out. And there's Mom, "What's the matter?" And I go, "Mom, I am so sorry for what I did to you." And here's a typical mom. "It's okay." No, it's not okay. So the people who have been there, the things that we have done, the things that we have said and for those who are still there, your mom, it just reminded me when you said that your mom, it just reminded me of my mom. So for all of the moms and the dads and the brothers, sisters, loved ones, family who have been there through thick and thin, God bless you. God bless
Amen.
you. And for all of you, and for everyone who's been on this show, sharing your stories, thank you. For all of you, we are not ignoring you. OG's taking care of that. And if you have specific questions for Benjamin, please, before we head off, OG will let me know. We will, but just to have you on here, this is why I wanted you on so bad, Benjamin, is because if you're passing your story, it was so fast on Music and Mayhem. I was like, oh man, I got to know more, and everyone else wants to. And everyone I told you about, just you, the person, man, you've made a difference in so many people's lives, including mine.
Let's hear what his mom
thank
had
you
to
for
say.
that.
Let's hear what he was talking about his mom.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. So please,
Shout out to your mom first and foremost. That sounds like a really transformative moment.
It was.
I'm standing on the steps of this recovery house that they've just shown me into, and God bless the people who run it. You know what I mean? I'm grateful to be living in the right place. And I actually ended up switching recovery houses for this reason within the same company because it was just too much. But my room the walls were covered in blood. And the walls were covered in blood because someone had hit a shot and then taken the registered blood when they relapsed because they knew they were going to get kicked out, and like graffitied the walls with their blood. And I put my bags there, and they were real about it. They told me about it, and I was like, so y'all didn't have time to clean it? Like, I'm cool to clean it, but like, it was out there. And so I'm thinking I'm like, dang, I actually kind of, the grimy, like, addict side of me was like, let's go. Like, I thought it was going to be all Mr. Rogers in recovery. Like, let's go, man. It's like a shooting gallery here. Like, what? So the macabre side of me was actually kind of about it, weirdly enough. But I was also sketched out and thought that kind of I was destined to use there at the same time. But my mom pulls up. She says she's going to take me to Chipotle. And I'm telling her about how grateful I am to be sober, how I put on weight, how I'm working out, how I met a cool counselor in there who played music with me. And we did like a James Taylor duet where I played piano when he sang and like all this. And she's like, oh, yeah? I found 5-6 empty bundles and crack bags. And thanks for the surprise of like 5-10 uncapped needles that almost stuck me when I was cleaning out your room. I just want you to know that my grandmother and I are paying for 3 months of this recovery house, but then you got to get a job. We're not giving you any money other than like, Metro, which is the name of the train in DC, pass, and like, what you need to not starve while you look for a job. And you're lucky you're getting that. And I'm never giving you another cent that I can't account for, leaving my purse not unlocked in a locked compartment in my room for you ever again. And I'm like,
Woo.
huh. But then she did something else. She took me down to one of them, take the stairs where the elevator's broken rooms. And she introduced me to some guys that I did not feel immediate kinship or connection with, but she knew that even though she was 5 years sober, even though she was working a strong recovery fellowship program, even though she loved me, tough love and soft love, and she said, you tell that story, Ben, like it wasn't tearing me apart to say that because you're my only son. I love you. I just wanted to be nice to you and celebrate, but I knew that if I did the same thing, all of my sisters in recovery have been telling me, you can't do that. But thank God she did, because when I needed comfort at that point, I had her, yes. But when I needed hard truth about how to survive that, the guys in that fellowship who gave me their numbers, who gave me their time, who when I was 10:30 having a craving and my sober house roommate relapsed, when I applied for a job and I didn't get it, when I got my heart broken early on in recovery, when I applied for a job and got it and dropped plates and glasses my first day working as a busboy where I didn't even have a belt that fit my pants because I was so darn skinny. Getting because I'm 6'3", so I need the 36 inseam, but the Macy's only has the 34 pants, and I ain't got the belt that's going to work with that, so I'm literally holding up my pants, first day training, dropping the glasses, and God bless him, this one guy at that job, separate from the rooms, the people at my job who would never struggle with addiction themselves say they're like, I want to shout out this one guy, and he's got his own demons, he was a Marine, he fought front lines in Iraq, like Tikrit, Fallujah, all that. He's seen a lot. And he had addicts in his family. But he looked at me and I was, fidgeting and stuff. He's like, dude, can I ask you something? Like, are you okay? And I was like, dude. And he had mad tattoos, so I knew I was cool. I thought at least. You never know. But I was like, dude, I'm in early recovery and I'm just like so afraid that I'm not going to be able to do this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this job. And I'm just training. I'm screwing up so much. And he looked at me and he said, son, there's one thing my time in the Corps taught me is that combat and training are two different things. So whether it's this point in your recovery or this point here at the job, you're going to make mistakes. But when it comes down to it, if you learn to trust yourself and trust the training you're getting in that fellowship and here at this job, you're going to show up and you're going to do it. And I want you to look at me right now and promise me you ain't going back and you're not going to be weak and you're not going to fold and you're going to take this pain and you're going to make it your trainer. And you're going to make, and I was just like, man.
Woo.
And he'd never been in recovery. And the crazy thing that also happened at that job, right, is one of the people that got kicked out in my recovery house was an older dude. And he turned out he was drinking the whole time he was in there. And he came into the restaurant after being back on the streets because he was homeless when he wasn't in the recovery houses or in treatment. And a server that worked there who didn't know I was in recovery saw me talking to him. And he's like, how do you know him? And I was like, I went to this sober house with him. I hope you don't tell the management or whatever. I wasn't comfortable telling the people at the job, And he's like, well, I just want you to know that, I would have never had any idea that you were struggling because I've tried to get him. He's a long-term friend of mine, a job at a lot of different places I've served at, and he never even showed up. So the fact that you're working to stay sober and like being here, like you should be really proud of yourself. And then there was a third thing. And before we pause for the last 2 times, I want to say this. This is a tattoo that I have for the outline of my works. You can still see it's kind of holographic in the skin there because that is just pure scar tissue in there. It's not because I got it iced out with like some diamond filament or whatever. It's because that's all abscess scar tissue. And at the point where I was 3 months in, it was still kind of 3D. It hadn't gone down yet. And I was working my job and I was afraid to pull my sleeves up even though it was super hot, but I finally did it. Because I was sweating so much, I was dropping plates as a busboy and I didn't want to get fired. So I went in and I rolled my sleeves up and a server asked me what the scar is. And I froze trying to tell him a lie. But I just realized, same way I did in the treatment center, where I was like, if I run away from the truth in terms of trying to use dope again, like I'm going to just keep running and it's going to be harder and harder. I didn't get sober because of some moral issue. I got sober because I wanted to stop beating myself up. And I didn't stay emotionally sober in that moment, telling the truth about my past because it was the right thing to do. I did it because I was tired of running with lies. And so I said, I'm a recovering heroin addict. I show up here every day at work because it helps me stay sober. And I hope that you will allow me to keep this job because it's keeping me sober. And they told me that they had relatives who were struggling with addiction and never got sober and alcoholism and that they were proud of me. And what that reaffirmed to me in and outside of the rooms is that by showing up, by being honest, and by working hard, I could not only get the, not just approval for like what I was doing, because at the time I was doing a bad job at the job. It wasn't about how nice I was as a busboy. I was horrible. It was about me. It was about what was within me, the strength within me, the love within me, the confidence within me. If I told the truth rather than try to flex the way I did with my raps, the way I was living, the drugs, all that, I could feel good within myself and have that translate into how my life played out externally. Not feel good about that externally, expecting it to play into how I felt within. And that was a turning point for me, man. And everything in my recovery since that has been grounded in the principle of honesty and showing up and working hard.
Man, that is,
Woo.
that's,
Woo.
now you can understand why I'm so damn happy that you're on here, and I've been looking forward to this so much, man. I mean, you authentic. That's one thing I can say about all of us dealing with addiction and alcohol and all these other issues, PTSD, mental health issues, is how strong we are, man. And I've had people that'll talk to me about addiction and all that, and they almost talk about it like addiction is taboo. And I've had loved ones. I've had a mother talk about her son and the daughter-in-law. And she talked to me about my fight or war. And she goes, well, my son and daughter-in-law, she goes, and then she actually got quiet. She goes, they have, addiction, don't tell anyone. We don't talk about outside these walls. And it's almost the embarrassment. And I said, listen, if you don't talk about it, by not talking about it, you just put another drink in his hand. By not talking about it, you just put another needle in her arm by not talking about it. So the next time we do talk about, an addiction and all that, it cannot be thought of as taboo. We have to own it. That's one thing I said as far as my own issues is until I own it, it will always own me. And I could lie and I can make up bullshit and keep changing the rules. But just like you with that tattoo, with that, once you throw it all out there, it's real. And it's you and it's Benjamin Lerner. It's Manny Vitale. It's all of us here. So, God bless you, brother. And
God bless you too, man. And I'm going to close with this.
Just so beautiful, man. Everything.
Allow me to get some
powerful
indulgent props. And I'll show you why in just a second.
And
so, where I'm sitting right now, the light's horrible because I had to plug my computer in. I know we got streak light in the back, and the backlit is not what it is. But I'm sitting in a magazine office where I'm now a staff writer for 4 publications that are owned by the person who produced my first piano-based recovery rap album, Clean, that dropped in 2020 before I had this platform. And my one dream in recovery was I wanted to move to Vermont. Because one thing I didn't talk about in the story is that my dad built a cabin up in Vermont in the 70s. And the one time I would be outside of my addiction because I didn't have access to drugs and, my addiction to clout and like any of that because my friends weren't around and I didn't have the internet was when I was up at that house in Vermont hauling logs for the wood stove and like hauling sleds up the hill in the ice in the winter, being out there in the sticks. And he gave me that house when I was a year and a half sober, because he's getting on. He's 79 now. He was like 72 at that point, 71. It was 2017, a year and a change after I got sober. And I was going up there working on it. And at the time I was working in the service industry, they promoted me from busboy to server to bartender. Sober bartenders do exist. And I was also working, funnily enough, at the same time in the treatment industry as a peer counselor, trying to piece together, my undergrad degree so I could get a grad degree and become a drug counselor. I didn't care about music because I didn't care about clout. I didn't care about any of that. I was happy to be sober, employed, healthy, and moving forward one day at a time. But through the grace of God that I believe, I will call it that, I went up one time in 2018, coming up on 7 years ago, and a family friend that I didn't let know I was coming there saw my car, followed me up the hill. I had an old clunky piano, and I played a song on that piano for him where I was rapping about recovery and playing piano at the same time. And he told me, there's a guy who owns a studio down the road. And I'm thinking it's just going to be some random little hole in the wall. It's not. It's $1 million award-winning, glass-framed, overlooking a river, 7-foot Yamaha Contra Grand, 48 solid-state Logic, $100,000 console, Grammy-winning engineer, run by a producer who's like, worked with Emmy, Tony, Oscar, EGOT people. And he's standing in front of me. He's like, play. And I'm like,
no pressure.
All
right.
Jeez.
And I did feel pressure, but I just said, you know what? Even if this guy doesn't want to work with you, you're still going to do this. Not even if it never gets heard by anybody. And I played it like, not like everybody was watching, like no one was watching. And he said, very cool. Want to work on it? And I went back. And within a week, I was going back and forth from my job. We recorded 5 songs. I sold the rights to him. And I was like, hold up, wait. If you're just buying the rights to these songs and cutting me out to because he had a Broadway back and make a musical, I'm out. We got to work together. He's like, I was about to say the same thing. I don't like the fact that we've had to stagger working on this album and that you're selling these piecemeal to me. I want to work with you on the whole thing. Let's go in 50-50. And I was like, but I can't quit my job. I can't move up here. He's like, why not? And he said something to me. I said, I want to be a drug counselor. I want to work in the treatment industry. He said, if you could build a platform through music, words, speaking engagements, and online advocacy, do you think you could reach more people as a treatment counselor or through that? Not everybody else who works in the treatment industry, because I think the people in the treatment industry, not to hate on advocates or podcasters, those are the real heroes. Those are the people who do the things to save lives, put people in recovery houses, get people on the medications, on the different fellowship plans that they have to make what they got work. But for me, I knew at that point that I had to take that risk. And I went home and I at that point I had, made God part of my life. I got the little joint. Yeah, there we go. Made that a little part of my life. And I prayed and a little light flashed across the piano in my mom's apartment when I was sleeping over there to hang out with her in the guest room she had with the piano. And I knew. And so I dropped everything. I left everything behind in my hometown, and I didn't know how it was going to work out. I'm going to finish with this, man, because when I got sober, I thought my dreams were over. I thought I was never going to be able to do what I loved from a young kid, the one thing that got me higher than dope, which was music and words. This resort publication, this publication for the biggest cultural summer destination in the entire country, this statewide publication, and this publication for the town that is the Aspen of the East Coast in Vermont next to that resort, 80% of their articles are written by a crack, fentanyl, and heroin addict because someone gave me a chance to do that. Yeah. I have a fellowship at a studio with a Grammy-winning engineer because someone gave me a chance to do that. I have a platform where I get to tell my story and speak that, and I didn't have none of those fancy things played any part in it, man, and that's the most beautiful thing. They helped me get to the part where I was able, but all these reels I recorded on a dated phone, walking my 2 sons around the block with my dog. And separate from the platform, the magazines, all that stuff, the dream I never knew that I had was to be a father and a present member of my community in long-term recovery. So if you're in early recovery, if you think your dreams of whatever it is, having a construction business, being a musician, being a podcaster, being a businessman or entrepreneur, being a doctor, being a lawyer, being a treatment counselor, being a person who can be there for the people you love, and you're like, nah, that's weak, man. That's corny. That's not me. That is you. The dream is you. You deserve to be sober. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to do what you love and find that. And don't let anybody, including yourself, tell you it's not going to happen, man. Because I didn't push for this. I didn't break down anything outside of me for this. I broke down what was within and I showed up. And that's what it is. So God bless anybody struggling. God bless you for providing me and everybody else this platform, man. And if I can leave it with one thing, the same anxiety, doubt, shame, and fear that pushes us towards the bottle in the bag is the electric fire and superpower that will push us towards recovery. And God, if you let that into your life too. But that's bonus points if you ask me. One day at a time, we can do this.
God bless you. Amen,
baby.
brother. I tell you what, I got mine right there. Yeah, I wear that there, and mine too, right here. And it's if without that, without my faith, I wouldn't be here. So, it takes a lot for me to be speechless, and people know that.
Yeah, it does.
And you pretty much got me there at this moment. But I tell you what, man, thank you. And this is one reason why I'm so damn happy for the blessings that I've been given to still be alive and to be part of this amazing family of My Fight or War, the amazing family of recovery and sobriety, and to be able to sit and have a conversation with you and all of the amazing people, everyone in this platform, everyone in the comments and all that. And we are going to go through all of these people as well. Everyone in the comments, like I said, we will be responding to you all. But I did not want to interrupt Benjamin 1 second with that story. And all I can say, brother, is thank you for coming on. Thank you for being you. Thank you for all that you have done and continue to do for all of us. Our life and the people who are struggling right now are so much better off because of you. And I love you, man. I appreciate
That's you, man. I love you too. Love you, OG. I'm about to go back and see just how much I have fallen short in the putting my kids through a bath and getting them to sleep in pajamas and all that.
Important stuff.
See how many dog hairs I need to brush out off the floor, because that's the real gift of recovery, man. Ain't no glitz, glamour, viral video, whatever, is being there for the people you love.
Yes, sir.
Before we head, is there anything as far as music, songs, anything that you want to talk
tell
about
anybody?
before we
Yes,
drop?
I'm going to be going live in half an hour after I go home and see where I've been sorely lacking in the dad department. I'm going to be premiering a song, YouTube exclusive. This ain't for Spotify streams. This ain't for algorithms. This is for the love. It's a story of a grandmother who lost her granddaughter to addiction-related consequences, and the grandmother's in recovery herself. And hopefully she will be joining me if the live lets me have her on. And if not, I'm just going to go live and talk about it, and she will be in the comments talking about it. The name of the song is Ansley. That's the name of her late granddaughter. The new song with Kalichi's out on my new EP, Run Towards the Truth. Thank you for giving me a platform to shamelessly tout it. Price of Addiction is about to break 250,000 streams on Spotify. Man, I love y'all. Thank you for listening to the music. There is much more on the way. 2025 is going to be a year of a lot of music and a lot of content and posting 2 reels a day. Y'all finna get sick of me, man. It's not stopping. Word to my song, not stopping. It's not stopping.
All right.
We will never get sick of you, brother. Never. So Benjamin Lerner,
I'll push the limits of that. We'll see.
Okay.
And you've got an open invitation anytime, all time, man. I love you, brother. You have a great night and give the best
Love
to
you
the family.
too, man.
All
God
right,
bless.
you take care.
Good night.
Well, there you got. There, I
Woo.
mean, you all know that it takes a lot to get me speechless, and I have been waiting for this show for a while, and I tell you what, it was worth the wait.
Powerful story.
To each and every one of you, thank you. Let's just go through here. Donald, Jacqueline,
there's a whole lot of folks.
Nicole, Heidi, Marie, Stuart, all of you on here. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. And the thing is, we are all in this together. This does not have to. This isn't just My Fight or War. We're a family. We're a family of warriors. We're a family of elite champions. And for us, we have gone through so much, and we are champions, man. We really are. And for the longest time, dealing with drugs, dealing with addiction, dealing with all the negativity and the terrible things that have happened, we have been called a lot of terrible things, and deservingly so. And we have thought of ourselves in terrible ways, deservingly so. But now we're different. Now, as I've said, now we own it. Whatever your it is, drugs, alcohol, eating disorder, what mental health issues, whatever it is that is controlling you. It doesn't have to have a fancy name or a diagnosis to be ruining your life.
Mhm.
Whatever it is that is causing you heartache and turmoil and ruining your family, own it. If you can dream it, you can do it. Don't ever let anyone's negative words or comments affect your life, your day. This is our time. In the past, drugs and alcohol decided when we were going to go to bed, when we were going to get up, when we were going to eat. Not anymore. We own it. It's our decision. You guys are amazing. I love you guys so much. To be put in this position um, is such a blessing. And,
And thank you for all the wonderful comments. I'm sure he'll get a chance to take a look at these later. Well, not tonight because he's got to take care of the kids and then
we're
he's got
going
to
to
do a
be,
live show. But he can take a look
and
at
then
these
for all of
and he'll
us,
appreciate all the wonderful love that you guys are sending.
yes, Danny Gibson, Jim, Heidi, again, Marie, Jacqueline,
There's a whole list. There's a
Claire,
lot.
Robin, Donald, John, you know,
Timothy, Jess, Amber Rose.
Nikki, Tracy,
Uh-huh.
Just seeing the outpouring of just your
Support and love.
love and support, and not only for Benjamin or for each other.
Mhm.
I love it when I look over and I'll see people interacting with each other, which I've seen again on here. I was so it was when I first started my fight of war, it was one of those things that I had to put. It said what type of group, what type of organization, and I remember it pissed me off, man, because it was like, no, man, that's not what I want. This is more than that to me. This is a family to me, and that's
Mhm.
what I wanted. So when I made my first post, I said, Facebook made me put group, made me put that. I go, screw that. We are a family here at My Fight or War. We are family, as we are an extended family. All of the other amazing organizations out there, I don't care what your name is. It's just like an extended family. We all have a different name, but we're still extended family. And it's just, it's a beautiful thing. Like I said, if you can dream it, you can do it. For the longest time, we didn't think we were worth it. Well, I tell you what, we're worth it.
Mhm.
It's okay to now look in that mirror and smile. It's okay to look in that mirror and be proud of yourself. It's don't ever let you, in your own words, be your own worst enemy, because the only limits that we have are the limits we put upon ourselves. And there are no setbacks. There's only great comebacks waiting to happen. So again, man, that was amazing, and I'm looking forward to doing a lot more work with Benjamin in the future, and to the rest of the family out there, in the musical family that I have now, with, of course, my brother. I can't go without saying my brother Skylar Ray, of course, King Handsome, Kalichi, Matt Keegan, everyone else that's been on and who's part of this amazing family. You do it by not only your songs and your music, but by your actions too, because you're out there and your music's making a difference. But not only that, sharing your personal stories is what's touching people as well. So again, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. We are going to be going through and answering any questions, comments, concerns. Please reach out if you know somebody, or if you think somebody needs something. If there's an issue where you're like, I just don't know. If you've got that thought in your head for some reason, there's a problem. You know, uh, and and don't forget to, man, when it comes to dealing with addiction, you know, don't try to lie to us, man, because you can't. You're here. My Fight or War is a safe place. You're not going to be judged. You're not going to be bullied. There's no shame here. What there is with us is you got love, support, motivation, and as we all know, that well placed kick in the ass when needed. So, you guys have a great night, man. thank you for joining us for this
Yeah.
special episode of My Fighter War with Benjamin Lerner. Please check him out along with everybody else. Any comments, questions, or anything like that, please get a hold of us. Let us know. And not only that, check us out tomorrow, Wednesday
Music
night. Me and my
mayhem.
brother Skylar Ray with Music and Mayhem. So until then, I love you guys. Keep fighting the good fight.